Uh, Bunge power, Bunge power. Again, my name is Ira Mishael. Mheshimiwa Speaker, thanks for the opportunity and the time. I've come here, nimesikiliza vizuri kabisa, nimesikia tunazungumzia mambo ya CDF. Na nafikiri hata kuanzia asubuhi pia bunge zingine tumekuwa tukizungumzia hiyo. So I think I will also give my take on the same. And I'm glad we are beginning to have a conversation around this. I've been the longest person talking about this in many of our forums. The reason I've been talking about it is because when we look at where we have come from as a people, we had a constitution from the famous Lancaster Constitution, but which over the decades was thoroughly mutilated to the extent that it was not serving anybody or anybody in this country. And therefore, during the urge and the desire to have a new constitution, multipartism and a new constitution, it was seen fit that we would have certain laws and rules that would govern us as a country. And including the fact that then everything was very centralized. So we remember when Kibaki came, there had to be ukarabati. Na that ukarabati wa katiba ilitusaidia ikaleta nini? CDF. CDF was a way of decentralizing because we did not have devolution. But finally, when we had the Constitution 2010, and we now had devolved units in this country, that same document, the Constitution, outlawed what? CDF. I remember going into this past election, the courts had already pronounced themselves on the same. And I remember when President Ruto came in, it was also for the same opinion that CDF should be done what? Should be put on the peripheries, as the courts had pronounced themselves. But we know what happened. Ruto was manipulated by the same MPs. And that is why I've said here before and anywhere else that our biggest problem is not Ruto, because Ruto is just one person. Our biggest problem is where? Is Parliament. The Parliament is not doing us a service. So they went, they manipulated the president. They told him, if you want your policies to pass in the House, we can only do it on one word, on one condition, that we have our what? Our CDF, which they knew very well is outlawed by the Constitution. Then soon, what did we see? The women reps also asked for their affirmative, isn't it? Then we now have the senators asking for the same. Apart from the senators, we have MCAs asking for a similar one, isn't it? Now, but what does the Constitution say? The Constitution says that any laws or any law or any set of laws that is inconsistent with the Constitution shall stand what? Null and void. I think where we must put our pressure on, today we do not need CDF because we have what? Governors. We need to have the two houses of parliament, and the two houses of parliament especially, to be left with the responsibility of legislative. Why do I say so? Because our constitution is borrowed almost to 95% of it from the Constitution of the United States of America. What do we see in it? We see that the legislators do not handle any monies. I've said this before, I will repeat it. Let the Constitution, let us demand that we go for a referendum and make it clear that the only monies that our MPs or our legislators should come into contact with should only be their salaries and allowances. Let the monies like the CDF fund be devolved and be taken to the governors, but let laws be made in a way that once those laws have been made, then if the governors embezzles any of these funds, then laws should be taken seriously and they should be penalized for the same. I dare say this, fellow Kenyans, like I've said before, I believe, I'm a strong believer, that in this country we should also look at other countries that have been before us and that have manage corruption, because corruption is so much embedded in our system. One of the ways of doing it is to have punitive laws that make sure that they serve as deterrent measures for others, while they punish the ones that are not. Okay, just give me a minute. Just a minute. Such that when we look at this, let us borrow some leaf from, like, for instance, China. What do China do? If you are found corrupt, what do? They hang you, isn't it? Hanging perhaps would be able to serve Kenyans, because I think sometimes people need to see an example which is daring, then they will be able to set back and go back. Why do I say this? I think in this country we should have at least a few of these leaders that are corrupt, like the governors, the senators, the MPs, hanged to serve as an example, such that whoever comes into that office should be able to understand that where we are going, the people of this country whose sovereign power we are exercising on their behalf need us to do this, and that is what we need to follow. Mr. Speaker, I rest my case. Thank you.
I know you had an act, but we will read it.